let's talk about what has happened really since Vegas hoisted Lord Stanley back earlier this summer. And we've got some rapid fire questions. So, Rupper, I think we're going to start with you for this.
All right.
And see exactly what's gone down here. And we want to begin with the big news, of course, this week. Erik Karlsson, we've talked about it at length. He is now a Pittsburgh Penguin. How does this Penguins team capitalize on this move in really making sure they kept that window open to stay competitive here with that veteran core they've got?
I mean, this is, it doesn't even have to be a move of this magnitude. This is an awesome move. I think this team instantly got better. They have some other areas I'm a little concerned about, but they got more talented in their back end. I mean, if you could have Chris Letang and or Erik Karlsson on the ice at all times, which you pretty much can do, that's a great sign. Adding Ryan Graves, it will help them tremendously. But for me, it's more, it was an indication that they're not going to be straddling the fence. Like, they're going for it.
Yeah.
And that's what's been needed for a little bit of time now. The last couple of years, it's been, all right, well, we want to do this, but we want to also do this. And sometimes that's a slippery slope, and I think we saw that.
Yeah, you have Crosby, you have Malkin, you have Letang. You've signed those guys. You're committed to try to win now. So you go out. I like the fact that they got Erik Karlsson. I mean, obviously, he's going to be a Hall of Fame player. Won the Norris last year, 100 points. That third pair right shot guy, Chad Ruedel, on our board there, I don't expect he'll be on the ice too much.
Yeah.
Those other guys have eaten up a lot of minutes. But what I think also that Kyle Dubas was able to do is he was able to move out some guys that really didn't fit in Pittsburgh. I mean, Petrie has moved out, right? They moved out the Granlund, who they got from Nashville. So those were things I think that helped them as well. I agree with you, Mike. There's some things they have to work on. I don't think they're very sturdy, let's say, on the back end. They're a little light there. They're bottom six guys. How are they going to shuffle that out?
Right.
And is Tristan Jarry going to be, is he going to have a season where he's healthy and at the top of his game to lead this group? Those are still question marks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how all that pans out come just a few short weeks. The Penguins on opening night will be taking on this guy right here and the Chicago Blackhawks. As we know, Chicago, they won the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, grabbing him first overall in the 2023 NHL entry draft. So what are we expecting from Bedard and really this team as a whole? Of course, he's insulated by another #1 overall pick in Taylor Hall, who's now also a member of this Blackhawks team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be frank. This team's not going to be good. So, I mean, that's going to be looking at the progression and kind of what Connor Bedard can do and the kind of the build. And I saw firsthand when they've got Patrick Kane and you're in Chicago and you're playing against the Blackhawks, like it was a ghost town. There was nobody in the stands for a while there. I expect it to be a little different now, but it was fun over the years, even though playing against the Hawks, you saw the build. And then how awesome of an arena and a city that is to support their team. I expect the same thing. So I'm excited to see what he does there. He's going to have a running mate with Taylor Hall, which is exciting, and he'll be able to add some veteran leadership to kind of show him and the pressures of being a first overall pick, he knows. So, again, they have some work to do on this lineup, but I can't wait to see 98.
Well, I like they got Corey Perry. You can see there. They got Foligno. I mean, these are older guys. They're really good veterans that have played in a lot of big games. Corey Perry has won a Stanley Cup. He has been a guy that was a first-round pick as well, not a first overall, but a first-rounder. And then, of course, Taylor Hall, who's had a lot of those experiences that Connor Bedard is going to run up against. So I think really nice job by Kyle Davidson there. To your point, Rupper, it's going to take time for the Chicago Blackhawks. But I remember those days as well. I can remember going into the United Center in 2005, and it was like friends and family, if that. Friends weren't even showing up. So, and then when they got Kane, they got Taves, the build, and then they went on to be that dynamic team that won 3 Stanley Cups. So this is the start.
It was funny. My dad lives in Chicago, and when I would go into Chicago in those lean years, he would move down right by
there.
the glass. I'd see Dad had Lowell had the whole first row.
Oh, nice.
And then as the years went on, Dad's tickets were getting a little further up. So it'll be exciting to see Chicago get back on the map, but this is a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we looked at that projected lineup, too, we talk about Taylor Hall. Yes, he can be there in that mentorship role. But I think Lucas Reichel, he's got to like that if he does slot in there on that wing, too. Probably picking up a lot of points.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Or that's his hope.
Yeah, I mean, and he played very well with the Boston Bruins. It was a nice spot for him there. Taylor Hall still got a lot to offer, I think. He had some injury issues, but he's healthy now. And it will be a good opportunity for offensively to push teams back. I mean, they're going to have to be focused on Connor Bedard. should create a little more room for Taylor Hall.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this screams. It's opportunity. It's opportunity throughout this lineup, and that's exciting for any player to know that you have a job, but it's how you're going to manage the down times. It's going to be tough.
Right.
There's going to be some long nights, some long weeks for the Chicago Blackhawks this year, but that's part of the process. I think that's part of the process for management to decide who's going to play with who is going to be a part of this plan moving forward, how you deal with those times. So there's going to be a close watch on all these players.
And they got a lot of other young players that they've drafted and developed over the last year or two that are going to slowly start pushing up the ranks there in Chicago. So it's going to be, this is going to be a build that's going to take some time, but it's just like the previous one, as you pointed out. That ended up with a happy ending.
Staying up quite nicely. Yeah, so that is their hope again, to replicate some of that magic. All right, Mike Babcock back in the league as he is now the bench boss of the Columbus Blue Jackets. So this team, they finished second to last in the league last year. Already on paper with him behind the bench, they've gotten better, right?
I think so. I mean, Mike, we had him on our show, when the announcement was made on July 1st, and he's excited to be back. Obviously, there were some things that had gone on in his previous tenures. He's kind of, I think, sat out, had some time to think about where he wants to go moving forward. I think that, he's planning on trying to approach things a little bit differently, but a lot of experience, a lot of success, Stanley Cup winner, Olympic gold medal winner. This team, they made some changes on defense. They added a guy in David Severson right to the mix. That's a helpful piece for them. They're hoping to be a little healthier. Werenski back healthy. That'll be a plus. But, Mike, for me, they got to figure out goaltending. If that is really where it all starts, a team like Columbus, they need that solid goaltending. Will they get it from Merzlikins this year, or do they have to go elsewhere?
Yeah, and I just want to use this opportunity. When we're talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets, you even date back, you could probably go back 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they spend money. They make big moves.
They do.
And they've tried to do all these things over time. And remember, you can go back to the big trade, Ryan Johansson, Seth Jones, and you got Artemi Panarin, and like
Bobrovsky,
like they've done things, and they're still continuing to do things like you mentioned, Each. I like what they did on the back end. And now they made the big move behind the bench. So I hope it starts turning and getting some consistency here. It seemed like they were building and going in that right direction under John Tortorella. And then guys became free agents and they chose elsewhere, and it kind of set them back. So, Johnny Hockey deciding to go there. They're getting high picks, young talent. I'm interested to see how Mike Babcock coaches this time around and has that young talent and gets them situated. This will be a fun team to watch because they do make moves, and I respect the heck out of that.
Yeah, they've got the talent there, so now it's just about putting all those pieces together, having them mesh. All right, this Boston Bruins team, what a year they had a season ago, but they're missing some key pieces now, namely that guy right there, Patrice Bergeron, announcing his retirement, and also David Krejci probably right behind him there. Likely going to retire, likely not starting the season overall, if not even just retirement in general. So we talk about this center position. How much of a concern is it for this group right now? Or do they find a way to just use the depth they have currently and insulate it elsewhere, pick it right back up?
It's a big problem. I mean, let's face it.
The concern is there,
Yeah, you don't lose a Bergeron who is an icon for that franchise, likely a first ballot Hall of Famer, and David Krejci, who was like the prototypical number 2 center, right? Those guys are gone. You saw the guys up on the screen. They were really good in different roles. Now they're going to be asked to move up in the lineup, Mike, and you've been a part of teams, you've been a part of championship teams. It's difficult to have guys move into those roles and to have the same kind of success. So I'll be curious to see what the Bruins management group does in terms of trying to fill those spots between now and opening night, and maybe during the season if the opportunity arises.
Yeah, I need research to jump in here and help me out because I want accuracy on this. But when you're talking about the vacancy between those two with Bergeron and Krejci, let's not forget what those guys made last year. They took significant pay cuts. So it's not just, we need to recover, which is you're not going to be able to fill the shoes of Patrice Bergeron. It's not about just replacing them. I think these guys, I think Bergeron was at 2.5, and I think Krejci was 1.5.
Yeah, and they had some bonus money.
They had bonus money in there.
But you're right. There was a bargain.
You're not fulfilling your first and second line center for under $5 million or $5 million. Like you're just not going to do that, right? You're not even going to be able to get a first-line center for that. So they're up against it a little bit. But the one thing I will say in a positive manner with this group, and I'm the guy who said they weren't going to make the playoffs last year. It's pretty wrong.
it.
You're talking about the best regular seasons all time. They have the it factor in Boston. They have this expectation of what it means to be a Boston Bruin, this culture when you walk in the room. So that's why I don't know. I don't know. I know they're going to be hard to play against. I know they're coached very well. I know this team's going to be in the fight every game. So I don't know what to make of it. I think that they're still a playoff team, but they do have some work. If they want to, I don't consider them a Stanley Cup winning team at this point. So playoffs, maybe, yes, I would believe that. Stanley Cup winner, they're not there yet. They got to fulfill those.
Yeah,
those
you have to have those centers through the middle. And Charlie Coyle is a really good player. And Pavel Zacha, again, Erica, you would know him from the Devils. And he was a guy that was a high draft pick that never kind of lived up to being the 6th overall pick, I think he was. But he was a really good player. And he was a good player in Boston for the Bruins. But now to ask those two guys to fill that void, I think that's awfully difficult. They do have the culture going, and guess what? They got some good goaltenders there, a pair of them that could help them.
That goes a long way, and that culture, I think, demanding that expectation of one another. So we'll see how those guys rise to the occasion, or maybe they make some moves because we know that is definitely a possibility. Another team making some moves, that was Atlantic Division rival in the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we know they picked up a few pieces this offseason that'll bring them much-needed grit. So when you look at their playoff series, how crucial was it that they addressed this need of having more physicality, Rupper?
I mean, it's so they overcame the big what if.
They won a series.
They finally
won a series.
If they didn't win that series, I think there would have been a huge wholesale changes, right? And there are already some big changes that were made. So they got past that. But I think what we've come to know, and really it's been the factor for quite some time, they still don't have the it factor come playoffs. They've got a ton of talent, and they've learned how to defend better, but they don't have the trench players. I think they're getting that now, and they've got the guys. And I will say this, and I always come down hard on the star players of the Toronto Maple Leafs because I don't think they've learned how to fight through certain things yet, and this team will not win a Stanley Cup until those guys do. But in the meantime, they added Max Domi. They've added Ryan Reeves. They added Tyler Bertuzzi. These types of players will help you kind of fake it till you make it. But I think that it'll help them. And here's the thing with Ryan Reeves and Domi, Bertuzzi, when you talk about adding some more grit and sandpaper, it's not about, quit talking about the deterrent for other teams. It's not what it means for the other teams. It's what it means for your team. The fact that Ryan Reeves is on your team, that Max Domi's on your team, that Bertuzzi is. Like they're going to be going toe-to-toe. They're not going to get pushed around like they did last year in the playoffs. Put it that way. Last year in the second round against Florida, they were manhandled. And that's where you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not willing to sacrifice certain things to fight through others, you're not going to win. So I think they did a good job in kind of fulfilling some of those areas.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the regular season goes for the Leafs. I mean, it's a hard league. It's hard to make the playoffs now, but I do think they have the talent there that they're going to be a playoff team. Maybe they don't have as many points in the regular season, but maybe with this roster, they're a little bit more dangerous in the postseason when you're playing that same opponent.
A little bit like Florida.
Night after night, exactly. Night after night after night, where you've got to deal with the different challenges that you may face moving forward. So, Matthew Knies, keep an eye on him too, that on the third line left wing, number 23. Good young player there. We'll see. They have a lot of expectations for him. So I'll be curious to see how it plays out. And also, I mean, they got some guys to sign moving forward as well.
That's exactly it. So let's talk about that because you got their stars that need to be dragged into the trenches and get that buy-in, show not just the skill, but also that physicality. So Austin Matthews, Willie Nylander, both up, approaching their contracts same time. Do these deals get done now, or do you think this is still a waiting game? How does this all get solved? Because we know that core four, it was all coming at the same time.
Yeah, I think Austin Matthews' deal gets done first. And that deal will get done. I don't know when. I don't think anybody knows that magic time frame, but it will get done. The Willie Nylander one might be a little more difficult because when you look, and I'm not trying to say, because Austin Matthews still is the franchise guy, and he plays the franchise position. Willie Nylander's a winger, but Willie had the same amount of goals this last year. Willie's really taken a step.
And he was excellent in the playoffs.
And in the playoffs, he was the game changer for them at times. Although, great first round by Mitch Marner. I don't see them both getting signed each. I have a feeling at some point, probably Willie Nylander's the odd man out because he's played so well on his numbers and he's been more consistent. He's going to demand more. And I don't know if this team could afford him with the John Tavares still under contract for 2 seasons. And then after this year, you got Matthews Nylander, and then after the next season, it's Tavares Marner. Yeah. So a lot of decisions to be made in Leafland.
There's no question about it. I'm with you 100%. For me, Matthews is kind of job one, right? He's their franchise player. He's their center. He's their leader. So the question, I think, in listening to people talk about the Matthews deal is the term. It's like, because you would think the team wants to sign him to the 8-year deal. I'm sure they do. They'd like to lock him up for the next 8 seasons. It seems like the Matthews camp wants a different term. They want a shorter term. I'm hearing maybe a 3-year term. So we'll see what happens there. If I'm the Leafs, I don't have a big problem with that. You came out of entry level. You gave him a 5-year deal. That's put you into this situation now where you got to re-sign him. You couldn't get him to do 8. If you give him 3 now, 5 and 3, my math skills are still really good, you get to 8. So at that point, you're really no further along. Yes, you've probably paid him more money, but you're going to pay these star players anyway. That's just the way it works. So we'll see how the term works out there. I would think that they would like to get that done soon, because as the season starts, it's a question. And really, at the end of the day, Matthews and Nylander, they really have control of this, because they can say all the right things, but if they don't sign a contract come next July 1st, they're both free agents. And I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs are interested in that happening. So it'll be very interesting to watch.
Very few times. And name somebody else if it comes to mind. I think of Steven Stamkos' situation, one that goes to UFA and then resigns.
Yeah, he's one of the very few.
One of the very few. I just know as a player and being inside the room and on planes, when you're talking to guys about guys' situations, no matter if you're a fourth-line guy, a sixth defenseman, first-line guy, first defenseman, starting goaltender, the closer you get, you got to see what's there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's something that you got to fight with. It's a slippery slope. So, yes, Toronto wants to get this done. I'm sure Austin Matthews wants to get it done as well. But to your point, the longer you get, you might be like, well, I mean, we've been talking we've been talking a long time now. Like, what's me go waiting another month and just seeing what everybody else? I can always come back, and that's where it gets a little bit
players, both of those players have control here, because at the end of the day, they don't have to do anything except go out there and perform. If they do that, they're just going to be fine. They can either stay or go. So I think the team wants to try to get this sorted out as soon as they can.
Yeah, certainly very intriguing there up north in Toronto. We do have some Leafs news on this Thursday. The club announced that they have signed their first-round pick, Easton Cohen, to an entry-level contract. Cohen was the 28th overall selection in the 2023 NHL entry draft.